Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to yet another tropical forecast here by Weather Forecast. And in this video, we'll be discussing now tropical storms Paulette and Renee, as it has both formed so far today, which means September already has had 4 named storms so far this month, which is pretty mental here. That's pretty crazy. We already had now 4 named storms so far in September. It's only been the first week of September here, but we have Paulette and Renee. They have both formed here, and we're really watching out whether they can both possibly be out to sea hurricanes here, and whether could they maybe merge more westward, or are they just going to go what they expect to do and go out to sea here. That's exactly what we'll be discussing in today's video. We're going to be looking at the cone, what the National Hurricane Center has, tracks, intensity. We're going to be looking at visible satellite imagery as well, and looking at future models and even the conditions if these storms could continue to thrive, or will one die or one thrive. That's exactly what we'll be talking in this video. Before we get into the video though, please subscribe if you're new, hit the like button and the post notification icon. But without further ado, let's get this tropical forecast. So here's looking at the National Hurricane Center. As you see here, we have Tropical Storm Paulette right there in front of Tropical Storm Renee. Renee obviously is the newest named storm, which means we've had 17 named storms so far this season, and that means we've had 17 named storms before the peak of the hurricane season. So who knows how crazy the rest of this month and even October could be here. And then our fourth disturbance is, our second disturbance is now at a 50% chance here. It was just at a 40, so it seemed like this could possibly be the next named storms here, or the next formation here. And obviously watching for this disturbance as well, as could it very well form before hitting North Carolina or the U.S. That's exactly what we'll be watching out for, as it could very well impact the southeastern coast. But there it is at a 30% chance in the next 5 days and a 10% chance in 48 hours. But there we go, Tropical Storm Paulette right there at 40 miles an hour and 1,005 millibars. And look at this. It is moving northwest at 3 miles an hour, guys. It's moving northwest at 3 miles an hour. So whenever it's going to be at favorable conditions, that could ever really help it thrive if it's in favorable conditions. But if it's in non-favorable conditions, it will die because it's moving 3 miles an hour. That's really slow. And we've had nothing but fast moving NDR storms this season. For example, Gonzalo, as well Isaias. A lot of these NDR storms have been really fast moving here. Even Laura was even fast moving, even as well as Marco that came from the NDR. But you see 1,005 millibars there, so it's pretty strong. It's a decent pressure reading. And then here we have Renee at 40 miles an hour and a pressure of 1,001 millibars. So it's actually or a lot more organized, and basically if you compare pressure, it's got a lower pressure than Paulette, which is pretty interesting here since Renee is the newest one. Paulette has been named since the 11 a.m. update, I believe. But it's actually moving west-northwest at 12 miles an hour, so a lot faster, so it could very well go this way, while Paulette's going to be going this way. And it seems like they're not going to go going straight west-northwest and hitting the southeastern coast. They're going to most likely start going out to sea like this. Could one of them hit Bermuda? It could be Paulette that hits Bermuda, and then Renee will probably go like that. And then who knows if this one will go out to sea too. So we can have 3 out-to-sea storms here. So really interesting. So here's looking now at Tropical Storm Paulette on satellite imagery. And as you see, actually earlier today, it's a lot more organized than it was yesterday. That's just it's pretty likely that this will continue to organize. But look at this banding, very nice banding here. We got some nice banding compared to just in general. It's got nice banding. You can kind of see that cloud cover starts stretching out, that low pressure here, starting to see that banding. Really kind of see it where it kind of wraps around like that, and then there's a low pressure. So compared to what this looked like yesterday, it's a lot better looking here, and it seems that it's continuing to wrap around and get a lot more convection in the center, trying to get a lot more convection in that center of the low pressure there. Just continuing trying to look a lot better. You can really see though, it's actually got some really good banding on the the eastern quadrants here. The upper northeastern quadrant, southeastern quadrant both have some really good banding here, especially for a 40-mile-an-hour tropical storm. It's got really good banding, pretty impressive for the start, and it's just been named. I mean, not too long ago. It's pretty good. I mean, it's not too shabby looking. It's not the best. It's not the worst, but this is what we have now. Tropical storm Josephine. Sorry, not Josephine. Oh my gosh, not Josephine. Tropical storm Paulette here, and like as you see, you can definitely tell it's moving 3 miles an hour. So whenever it gets to these favorable conditions, if it moves in a little area of no shear or warm water, it's gonna be go time. But if it goes into areas a lot of shear and it takes over, it's done for. So here, looking at the National Hurricane Center cone, they actually just updated it right now at 5 o'clock here. And so this is the newest update. And as you see, a lot of people are saying that's going to hit the southeastern coast. It's going to go out to sea. It won't affect the U.S. It won't make landfall anywhere. The closest it will get to anywhere will be Bermuda here. But as you see, it's going to start going kind of west, straight due west, which is why people think it will hit the U.S. And then after, just go straight up north here. But as you see, it's going to continue to be tropical storm as late as Saturday, so 5 days. So they don't expect it to be a hurricane. The National Hurricane Center says it being a 70-mile-an-hour peak. But I wouldn't be surprised if this actually does become a Category 1 before heading to unfavorable conditions or before shear takes over. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this actually does become a hurricane for its peak. And then obviously not hitting any land, just going out to sea here. But as you see, very, very slow moving, but based on the National Hurricane Center, they expect it to start speeding up here by Friday. But really, look at that, really moving slow. I mean, look where it will be by Thursday. Look where it will be. I mean, this is where it is now, and it's going to be barely at have moved west 4 days later. Sorry, 3 days later here. But really slow moving right now, but this is where the cone is, and it's AC in 5 days. It'll only be right here, so very, very slow here, so that could either be good or bad for its formation. It really depends on the conditions here and how they clear out or if they get worse. But as you see, a lot of the models actually agree with that. The National Hurricane Center going kind of west-northwest a little bit. They're going due west and then going kind of due north or northwest, and then going to go out to sea there. We have 3 models actually just, I don't know what they're even showing. They're doing like that, but this is basically our cone here, so really not much to talk about this because it's just going to be going out to sea here. Not much really compare about the tracks here. Intensity guidance, a lot of the models actually get this to staying at the tropical storm, but something really interesting is that a lot of the models kind of going weakening and then strengthening, and a lot of them are heading heading to a Category 1 here. I mean, it's not just 1 or 2 models. It's actually a lot of the models showed it kind of weakening. Could be some shear getting to it, and then it just goes straight back up. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 models showing that. So it's almost every single model. So they do expect it to possibly get up to possibly 55 miles an hour, and then weakening to a possibly borderline tropical storm or maybe a 45-mile tropical storm, and then start going back to strengthening. So it could very well be a hurricane, maybe a weak Category 1 for its peak here. So I'm not going to rule out a hurricane, but this could very well be the time where it goes through some shear. This could be the shear zone or dry air zone, and that's exactly why it could be weakening. And maybe since it'll be speeding up as it goes more following that subtropical jet stream, it should possibly, as it kind of gets right out, it gets out of the dry air, it gets out of the shear, and then it could very well become a hurricane. So that's what I find really interesting about this. But really going to monitor this very closely as it's a Paulette. It could be very well a very long-lived track storm, named storm here. So we could be seeing the word Paulette for a while in the National Hurricane Center website here. But could it get to a hurricane later on after it does move in through the rough conditions? That's the question we'll be asking. So here's looking now at a newly named tropical storm Rene, and as you see, it doesn't look too good. But I mean, compared to what it was yesterday, it does look pretty good. There we got the low pressure right there. Seeing a lot of convection on that those western quadrants there. That low pressure seems to be looking very good. But as you see, some nice banding here. Got the nice banding. Looks pretty good for what it looked like yesterday. It was basically like a speck of convection, really. But you see, it's really trying to get a circular formation here, which is what you want to see. You don't want to see a square-looking tropical storm, do you? But it's going to be going over those islands that are just off the coast of Senegal. And I actually don't, if you guys know the name of the islands, please let me know. But I actually do not know the names of the islands. But it's going to bring in some strong up to 50 to 60 mile an hour gusts for those islands there. And it's going to bring in some pretty rough conditions for night-wise, since it's pitch black now. Could be seeing some windy conditions, depending on how good the power is there, maybe some power outages, but there's actually tropical storm warnings for those islands there, so they're definitely expect tropical storm winds, maybe a couple widespread power outages scattered all over the islands, but shouldn't be too shabby for those islands. But definitely starting to get its act together. Convection wise, as we see before it gets dark, it started to get some spots of convection, as you see here. Started to get some little spots here, and it takes a little spot of convection to create a big organized system here. So we're gonna be really watching Renee in the next coming hours. So here's the new National Hurricane Center 5 o'clock update for Renee, and as you see, they have tropical storm warnings for those islands there still, for those islands off Africa. And as you see, they do expect it to possibly be a hurricane by Thursday. So the National Hurricane does expect this to be a hurricane, and it does expect to go out to sea. So like I said, these will not impact the United States. I don't know. Some people are saying they will. Some people are saying there's going to be effects for these areas, but there won't. There won't be any effects. The only effects we get is probably from that disturbance number 1 that's going to be heading for those areas possibly. But from this, no. But the fact that the National Hurricane Center says a hurricane already for this does seem like it could very well be a decently strong system here. But I think we all knew that Renee would be stronger than Paulette. It's just because Paulette's going to be further out in front of Renee, and it's going to be going through those rough conditions, and Paulette will clear out the conditions actually for Renee, and Renee will clear out the conditions for that new disturbance there. So it could be the later they are, the stronger they are. So Paulette will be the weakest, Renee could be the second weakest, and then that other one could be the strongest. I mean, that could very well how it go, because they can clear out the conditions and the shear here. And shear is expected to clear out a lot more for this general or the MDR after Paulette does move by, so that can actually help Rene get to a hurricane and help that disturbance off Africa become a big hurricane like models do expect it to be. But I see just nothing much to say. It could be out to sea a hurricane, could very well be a category 1. Some models even get this to possibly a category 2, but as you see, it's going to go out to sea like that. Nothing really much to say about this, just it tracks intensity. As you see, a lot of the models that get this to a hurricane stay just staying steady as a category 1, but a long-lived category 1 could be a hurricane 60 hours and still a hurricane in 168 hours. So it could be a long-lived hurricane. One model gets us to a category 2, and we still have a couple models. Around 50% of the models still show this being staying at a tropical storm, a steady tropical storm, just like Paulette. But I think it's very likely this will be an out-to-sea hurricane, at least a category 1 here. Category 2 isn't out of the picture though, but let's go and look at the models and the conditions. So here's looking at the new 12Z GFS update, and as you see there, they have Paulette at 1,002 millibars in the next 6 hours, and Renee at 1,000 millibars in the next 6 hours. So it's continue to show Renee being stronger and more organized. And as you see there, these storms kind of blast off, and they're kind of still showing that new disturbance off Africa, but they've shown in 66 hours Renee at 998 millibars, so they could be a weak category 1 at that point. And then they show Paulette kind of dying. Like I said, it's going to be going through some rough conditions there, and they show kind of weakening and then getting a bit stronger, which is actually what the intensity models are showing here. So it looks like a lot of models are starting to agree. And then you see there they have that new disturbance there at 1,007 millibars, could very well be tropical depression at that point, and then going to be thriving. Actually, it's going to be more south basically. It's going to actually have kind of more due west and stay in the MDR instead of going due north out to sea there. But you see, they're going to be both at 996 millibars in 162 hours based on the GFS, both Renee and Paulette. So the GFS shows both of these getting to a hurricane. It actually shows possibly Paulette actually getting stronger at 988 millibars and blowing up. And then they show that one coming off Africa, it being a hurricane. So we can have 3 hurricanes in the Atlantic here. And look at that. The GFS gets Paulette to 975 millibars, and that new disturbance there at 983 millibars. So it seems like we'll be seeing some pretty decently 2 strong hurricanes here. It seems like the one off Africa could definitely be the strongest though, because conditions will be the most clear. But as you see, GFS does show that that Renee will stay steady as a category 1 and not really stronger until later on. But as you see, look at that, and then the one off Africa does take that northern turn later at 975 millibars. And look at that, GFS shows Paulette being at 966 millibars. And then look how close they get. And then GFS shows another storm coming off North Carolina, like like a Faye or like a Kyle. But look at that. Look at those. Look how close they are. 982 millibars for 982 millibars will be for that one off Africa, and then 970 for that one that for Paulette right now, and then they go out. But really, really interesting. I mean, look at that. And then the GFS shows another storm forming here at 967 millibars, heading for the Lesser Antilles. I mean, if the GFS happens, this will be mental, because this will be another named storm. That'll be the 5th named storm if the GFS is right, and then another storm that'll be the 6th named storm, and then that'll be the 7th named storm. That means we could very well see, based on the GFS, we're gonna be seeing Greek named storms in late September, which is mental. I mean, the GFS is. I mean, look at all that action. We're gonna be seeing a triangle of out to sea storms. You see the Bermuda Triangle. It's the MDR storms off Africa triangle. I mean, look at that. That can't be a coincidence. That cannot be a coincidence here. I mean, look at that. 2 triangle lined hurricanes there. But based on the GFS, they get Paulette to as low as 967 millibars. They get Rene as low as 990 millibars, 988 millibars, and then making landfall in the UK. And then they get that one off Africa as low as 979 millibars. So it seems like the GFS is favoring that all 3 of the ones off Africa, including Renee and Paulette, and that new disturbance to become a hurricane. So let's look at the shear. I mean, I've been saying how the shear could very well be clearing out after these storms move by for that new disturbance. But let's go and check out the condition we have now. As you see, they do have a little pocket of no shear, and that's exactly where Renee is. Renee is right here, and then Paulette is right here. So they're actually very lucky to be in that little pocket there of no shear. And as you see, it's going to kind of clear out a lot. It's going to clear out a big ton for that one off Africa, which I'm saying the one off Africa could possibly be the strongest, because it clears out quite a bit, and it's going to have to come out right in time. But look at this. Look at this big blob of no shear, basically, or very little shear. That's going to really be very favorable for that one off Africa to possibly thrive. And if the GFS is right, if another one comes off Africa, I mean, that could very well thrive, because there's going to be little to no shear for portions of the MDR. And that's exactly what the GFS should be, 967 millibars before hitting the Lesser Antilles. And I mean, that could very well be something, because I mean, look at that. That is, I mean, it's going to clear a ton. It's going to clear a ton of shear wise for the MDR. So if more storms keep on coming Africa, they'll be a lot stronger than Paulette and Renee will be. But guys, I hope you guys did enjoy the video. Please do not forget to like and subscribe, and bye guys.